Running. All right, welcome everyone to the AMPED Inner Circle. I see lots of new faces. It makes me very, very happy. It's so good to be with you all. I'm Dr. Erin. I'm coming to you from Reno, Nevada, and the husband's home, the dog's home, the 3 kids are home. We're all home. We're all Zooming. We're all I might be wearing sweatpants on the bottom. That's just the new uniform and I like it. I got showered today and I looked at myself. I was like, who is that? Oh, that's me. Like I have forgotten what I looked like. I've been wearing a ponytail for 10 days straight. I need to do this every day. This makes me feel good. So notice that about yourself. Just getting showered and putting some makeup on help you. It might help, and it might help with your productivity. I'm really excited about the conversation we're going to have about productivity today, given that we're in a pandemic, because I'm going to walk you through kind of what my normal productivity training is and how things are different and how they might be the same given the times that we're in. So 2 months ago, you would have heard a much different productivity talk from this high performance coach. And I think you might be relieved and take some joy in how we're going to talk about it today. And I think it's just going to make a great, great discussion for a lot of you, and it's going to help you pivot in some beautiful ways. So let me tee it up like this. And I usually train for about 20, 25 minutes. So that's what we'll do. And then I'll open it up for some discussion. So I think, was it 3 weeks ago or so, we were told to stay in. And I don't know if you're at all like me, but this was me like the first couple days. Oh my gosh, great. I have so much time on my hands. I am going to write my New York Times bestseller. I am going to paint the house. All these baseboards that have been looking at me for 16 years, they're all going to be white and snazzy. I am going to get so much done. I'm going to have time to work out twice a day now, not just once. This is going to be amazing. Okay, I had all these dreams and all these plans of how productive I was going to be. Anyone relate? Yeah, okay. So we're 3.5 weeks in. No, I have not written a word of my New York Times best-selling book. Okay, I did paint for 3 weeks straight and my shoulder was like, for the love of God, woman, stop. The house looks beautiful. And I think looking back, that was my way of kind of coping with the stress and the grief and the overwhelm. And now we're in this different phase of like, oh gosh, I can't just sit around all day. I could if I chose to, but there's something about it that's not even the healthiest, most loving thing I could do for myself. And we get to this point of like, yeah, that works for a certain amount of time, or that works for a certain amount of struggle in one's life. It's just interesting. So I'm a psychologist. I had a private practice for 16 years. And this is how I want to start out. I really want you to know that I'm a terrible person at judging you. I don't judge people. It's not what psychologists do. We love and accept and approve of everyone. And I want you to realize that if you cannot be graceful and extend compassion to yourselves in such a time as this, my friends, you're missing the lesson, and you're never going to be able to extend grace and compassion to yourselves. And I want you to know that no matter how you're doing this, you're doing it right. This is not normally the message I give. This is not normally the message I give. So this is what I want you to know. If you're painting for 3 weeks and not really even interacting with your children, that's right. If you're hanging out with your children all day and getting nothing done in your business, that's great. If you're watching more Netflix than you've ever watched in your life, that's fine too. And I'm going to give you a context of how could that be fine. And it's all based on my definition of productivity. So this definition may be different than one you've ever been given. And I want you to write this down. Productivity is a measure of how well you're leading your dream. Productivity is a measure of how well you're leading your dream or your mission. Okay? So if productivity is simply a measure or a function of how well I'm leading my mission, you can then see how it has nothing to do with how many hours you work. It has nothing necessarily to do on some rule that applies to everyone of you should be doing this and you should be doing that. Because by definition, if it's a function of how well you're leading your mission, then you've got to check your to-do list by your mission. You've got to put it in front of your own mission. And if your mission right now in quarantine is to get to know your family again on a first name basis, if your mission is just to take care of yourself because maybe this is re-triggering some past trauma, then your mission is to take care of yourself. And your mission might then look like self-care and not doing much work. If your mission is to maintain a business because you need the income, then that probably needs to be your mission. And that definition of productivity would be measured on that. If your mission all of a sudden has become to figure out how to homeschool 3 children, then that becomes your measure of productivity. So everyone's definition of success is different. And so therefore your definition of productivity is different. And so then how well you're leading the dream is different. So I want you to also think of the definition of productivity as, if you know what the mission is, then productivity is, are you moving the needle on the things that matter most for that mission? Is this thing I'm doing moving the needle on what matters most? So if we don't know where we're going, any road will take us there. So the first step of figuring out productivity is I want you to think about, maybe even for the next 3 months, how do I want to come out of this? Like, what would be a great result? For some of you, it may be, I have avoided a clinical depression. For some of you, it may be, right? I have maintained my marriage. For some of you, it might be, I'm going to scale my business. For some of you, it might be, I'm going to start a business. For some of you, it might be, I'm going to save and maintain my business. I want you to think of like, what would be an outcome that you would be happy about? And notice how even your outcomes are shifted from all of this. Okay? Isn't that just eye-opening? Because then we're all doing it how we all need to be doing it. So I might, for example, things might have come up on the radar that weren't there before this. Like, okay, I want to figure out how to like keep the children happy and all of that. Well, that's taking away some of my bandwidth that I didn't usually have to expend in certain ways. Okay, we're all being asked to do these things maybe are like they're added to your plate. And when you have things added to your plate, but guess what becomes even more important is filling the cup back up. So self-care becomes more important. So me watching Netflix at night for an hour with my family, which we've never done before, is actually the most brilliant thing I could do for my productivity because it's filling up my cup. It's like this fun thing. See you on the couch at 9. It's super fun. We're bonding over it. But if you have this one size fits all definition of what you should be doing, you could easily think that you're doing it wrong. And you could shame yourself and guilt yourself. And if you guys are resonating with this, go over to the chat room, and that's how you can all kind of communicate with each other. It's pretty fun to do it that way. You know, like things that used to be kind of a no in my own brain become this like, oh my gosh, yes. We went on our hour-long walk. We've done it every day. We feel like that is like winning for our family. Winning, the points have been reassigned, my friends. I'm not trying, for example, to be a Pinterest parent. I am nailing mediocre parenting. Mediocre parenting looks like you do a little bit of goodness and then you put them in front of a 7-hour little TV show and then you do a little bit of goodness at the end. I mean, I'm kind of teasing, but like, this is not the time to be hard on ourselves. It is the time to look at our mission and look what will feel good about us being in congruence with who we want to be and figuring out, okay, what does that look like then? Okay, so I always talk about productivity as once you figure out your mission, what are the 3 buckets of activities that will move that mission forward? And usually, since I'm a high performance business coach, we're looking at buckets like marketing, sales, and maybe visibility. And so maybe your 3 buckets in business were really the goals of what we were working on. And that would be like how to grow my visibility. So how many Facebook Lives would I want to be doing, etc. You get the point. Marketing, what would that look like? And then networking, what would that look like? But I believe these are the 3 buckets for such a time as this. I believe the 3 buckets right now should be, you got a bucket for your business or your mission, you've got a bucket for your friends and family, and you've got a bucket for your wellness. I was just on a call with listening to Jesse Itzler, and he's married to the Spanx, owner of Spanx, and he's a billionaire, and I love him. And I've always talked about 3 buckets, but he talked about that these 3 buckets should change to these, and it made perfect sense. So I always want to give props where I heard that. But the 3 buckets, if you could do one thing in each of those buckets every day, would you not feel like the most productive person during this time? So ask yourself, what does that look like? One thing to move my business forward every day. One thing to connect with my friends and family every day. And one thing for my personal self-care and wellness, because my goodness, we know there's never been a more important time to figure that out for yourself. And again, it's going to look totally different. Netflix was not how I used to self-soothe. It is now. It might not be when we go back to whatever we go back to, right? No right or wrong way. Ask yourself this, when I do the thing, does it deposit energy into my bank account or withdraw energy from my bank account? Bev Saunders is on the call today, and she's an energy coach, and we talk about energy being a deposit or a withdrawal, and she's an expert in this. So if you want to reach out to her about it, do that. Pre-pandemic, Netflix would have been a withdrawal for me. It just wasn't in line with kind of my mission and stuff, what was going on in my life. And now it's a deposit. Yeah, stop feeling guilty. So I think we can all remove the guilt now with our new definition. Is this moving the needle forward on my dream, on my mission? And my mission's different right now than it was in some ways. And it might be the same in some ways. So I'll tell you about, so think about what your three buckets, and I want you to kind of bookend your days. I'm going to give you 4 ideas for productivity in such a time as this. And one of them is bookending your days. So actually let me get to that. Sorry, when I get to that. So the first is, I want you to experiment with getting up and getting dressed. Okay, we're going back to basics, people. There's something about, we know when you change your environment such that it triggers you to say, oh, now I'm going to work, or oh, now I am out of relaxation time, or oh, there's something about that, right, that matters. I'm not getting dressed for you, I'm getting dressed for me, right? It's an energy state. My body needs to know when we're out of the yoga pants. Okay, so 1, get up and dress. Just try it. Again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. If you never want to get dressed these next 3 months, you don't have to. But look at where your energy kind of goes, okay? Right? There's no right or wrong. 2, I want you to experiment with a dedicated place to work, where your body's like, oh, we're working. Oh, there's like an indent on the couch the size of my butt. Anybody else? I mean, it is like, I just instantly want to go back there. And I'll find myself there, like, how did I get here? What are you doing? What are you doing? Okay. Watching Anderson Cooper again. Like, it's sometimes I've noticed, like, get back to your workstation. So I have created this desk here that never used to be here, in this room out here. Like, never used to have this. I know I'm at work when I'm at this desk. Number 3, make a plan the night before. You cannot wing it, especially in times like this. I see way too many people just winging it. We know you can't wing it in life and succeed. You can't wing it in your business and succeed. So we're not going to wing it anymore. So having some structure, again, might look a little different right now, but we're not going to wing it. We're not going to wing the pandemic and hope we come out all right. We're going to live with intention, because that's what we do when we're living an amped life. We are living with intention, and we are designing our life, not living in a default of like, I hope it works out. We are never doing that, okay? So I want you to ask yourself, so that's where the bookending comes in. Really a high performance trick, tried and true, that works is high performers, which means you're successful and you have all the things you desire in your life, like great relationships and your health, by the way. They start their day with intention. So they look at their calendar, they look ahead, And they end with this kind of, how did it go? How did I do? You start your day with, who needs me on my A game? What is the goal for today? How would I know that I did today well? You might start your day with thinking, what could go wrong and how might I want to handle that? And then at the end of the day, you bookend with taking inventory. How did I do? What did I learn? And you think about what's up for the next day. And I love this 3 buckets because high performers often will make a list of 3, just 3 things to do the next day. So the bucket thing works really great here. Okay. So if you live with other humans, what I found is it's super great to communicate with them a lot about what you need and what's going to happen and what's going to need to go in those buckets. So my husband and I are pretty good at every day saying, what does your day look like? Okay, meet out in the garage for a walk at 4 o'clock. Okay, great. I've got a Zoom call from 1 to 2. Okay, great. I got our son covered at that time. Then there's no feeling of like I'm being pulled in all directions, which just causes stress. There's no multitasking. Multitasking will cause us a lot of stress and anxiety. Okay, so it's not that we don't have distractions. That's not what sets apart the high achievers from the rest. It's that we're figuring out how to manage the distractions. Because guess what? I can't get rid of my family. I can't get rid of them. They're not just a distraction that I can get rid of, nor would I want to, but they're here and they're all living here and they're all here. So how do I manage the distractions? I communicate with my husband about that, of what I need to accomplish today and what does he need to, and what would be a great day for everybody. Okay, and then 4th, blocking time. So really kind of just dedicating the times you're going to work. So working from home does not mean we're always working and we're at home. It doesn't mean we're always working. Working from home does not mean we are always working and we happen to be at home. It means these are when, so it's calendar is king. Oh man, I mean, that's never been more true than right now, okay? So let me go through those 4 again. Get up and get dressed, just try it. Dedicate a place to work, give yourself structure. Making a plan the night before, bookending your morning and nighttime routine, and blocking time, okay? So I want to give you 5 pillars of productivity. So write another 5 down, and we've covered some of these, but I just want to chat with you about like pre-pandemic, post, like during pandemic, how these things change. So first of all, these are the questions that I would have asked you if we weren't in this pandemic. And I want you to rate yourself 1 to 10, with 1 being it's not true at all, and 10 being it's totally extremely true, okay? 1 to 10, 1 being not true at all, 10 being totally extremely true. And I want you to think of your last week. So it's Monday, so I want you to think of the whole last week, Easter weekend, that whole week, and just rate yourself on these questions and think about how different these questions would have been 3 weeks ago, okay? Most days I feel extremely satisfied by what I have accomplished that day. So how you doing? I'll say it again. Most days I feel extremely satisfied by what I have accomplished that day. So how you doing this last week? Next one. Most days I feel in charge of and in control of what goes on my calendar. There's 8 questions. Next one. I'm focused most of the time and not easily distracted. Oh, that's a fun one. For now. I am focused most of the time and not easily distracted. Next one. I am great at managing interruptions by other people in my life. I am great at managing interruptions by other people in my life. Next question. I regularly and consistently time block my day. How are you doing in the last week with time blocking your day? Next one, I would rather have something done than wait for it to be perfect. I would rather have something done than wait for it to be perfect. Totally true is a 10. Next one, I have extreme clarity of what I say yes and no to. How are you doing with that? I have extreme clarity of what I say yes and no to. And then the last question, I have the energy I need and desire most days to accomplish my tasks. I have the energy I need most days to accomplish my tasks. So maybe hop over to the chat room and just share with us maybe what something you've noticed. Maybe an area like I'm nailing that, maybe an area of, whoa, this has really rocked that aspect of productivity for me, okay? Because I know we're all just going through so much of the same things. But here's my 5 pillars of productivity, and this is all on a worksheet that I put in the AMPED Inner Circle Facebook group. So if you can't write fast enough, that's totally okay. It's all right there. The first pillar, and again, we're just gonna translate this pandemic productivity, translate it to see if this changes for us. The first pillar is pour in before I pour out. And when you look at really successful, productive people, and you know, like they're not getting more hours in the day, you know they're not getting more hours in the day. So how do they do it? You know that they're sleeping because you know from the research, high performers sleep more than the average Joe. So you know they're not skimping on that. So how the heck do they do it? What we know is their first hour of their day is like magic. They pour in before they pour out, and they do a certain number of things, and the order of this doesn't necessarily matter, but it matters that you do it the first hour and not wait, because we are very different beings when we are creating versus reacting. And so when we are pouring in, we're in a state of creating versus reacting. So reacting looks like getting on our phone right away, looking at texts and emails, which by the way is just other people's agenda for our life. They're not actually emergencies. They're other people's agenda for our life. So we pour in. So we understand the first hour of every day is to be on the offense, not the defense. That we meditate in some form or connect to our higher power, that we take a couple glasses of water or tea, whatever gets us kind of going. This is what high performers, they all do the same darn thing. They might move their body, whether that's stretching or a little bit of yoga. It might not be their full workout for the day, but they move their body a little bit and they connect with kind of their purpose and their plan for the day. So you're pouring in before you pour out. Okay. So they start the day with that success routine. The second pillar is they begin with the end in mind. They begin with the end in mind. This is what they say to themselves. They say, I understand the importance of knowing where I'm going. I'm going to reverse engineer my dream from there. I'm going to do monthly project reviews. I'm going to create weekly plans. I'm going to map out my days. I'm going to ask myself, how can I do each day with excellence? And so normally this training, I would ask you, what's your 1-year goal and what were those 3 buckets to reach your goal? But again, why don't we just talk about like, what's our next 3 months? Where do we want to end? What would be a success? And what are the 3 buckets? I believe they should be business, family and friends, and wellness. Third pillar of productivity is they win the day. I want you to win the day. And this is where time blocking comes into. So they understand, high performers understand the value of time blocking, which means they're working for about 50, 55 minutes, about an hour, and every hour they're taking a little break. And what they're doing in their break is they're restoring their energy. So if you look at high performers, it's interesting. They don't need a vacation from their life because they're burned out. How do high performers, they love vacation and they take vacations, but it's to restore their energy just enough so they can get back to doing their mission. So the key to success here is they've learned how to master restoring their energy in little deposits throughout every day. So this is where they do it. They master the transition. So every hour, if we're transitioning from one activity to the next, maybe we're taking a glass of water, or we're stretching, or we're doing a couple squats right there at our desk. A resting transition does not look like this on your phone. It's not this, it's this, right? So this 2-minute break restores the energy. Maybe you just recite the word release, release, release. That's from Brenda Burchard, my mentor. Release, that's just a 2-minute meditation. Maybe you just breathe 10 deep breaths and connect to this thing called your body that you're attached to, that you forget about, you know? So it's just restoring your energy throughout the day. And then in those 50, 55-minute increments, I call it SWAT teaming your hours, where you're in it. You're feeling your day. You're feeling your life. You are present wherever you are. Brendan Burchard has this great 4-word transition that you can use each transition you make. And it is release tension, set intention. Don't you love that? Release tension, set intention. He worked with Oprah Winfrey. He was her life coach and coach for her life coaching programs. And he said that she told her for 25 years at Harpo, she started every single board meeting, staff meeting the same, every single time for 25 years. And she would sit down and she would say to her crew, what is your intention for this meeting? I want you to do that. Every transition you make, if you're hanging out with your kids, what is my intention for this time with them? How do I want to show up? Okay, number 4, choose discipline over distraction. Okay, so who's going to come out as winners through this whole pandemic? Is it the distracted people or the people that are managing their distractions? It's the people that are going to manage their distractions. Now, let me say a caveat to the word distraction. In psychology, there's this thing called emotional regulation. And that is just like, how well are you managing your emotions? And because of the times that we're in, you're going to get lots of fun emotions to have an opportunity to hang out with, right? And here's what I want you to know. Distraction can get a bad rap when it comes to emotional regulation, and it can be a really useful skill to use in certain times. On a scale of 0 to 10, if your dysregulation level is your upsetness level, your agitation, irritability is an 8, 9, or 10, that, my friends, is when you want to use distraction like it is your best friend. You cannot think straight when you're at 8, 9, or 10. So the tools we use for emotional regulation are different based on where we are on that scale. When you're at 8, 9, or 10, your rational brain has turned off and your emotional brain has kicked in, and you can't think straight and you can't problem solve. It's like if you wanted to sit down and have a great talk with a 3-year-old toddler that's temper tantruming, that's not going to go well. You wait for the temper tantrum to get over and then you talk about the lesson, right? Same for us. If we're at 8, 9, or 10, it's okay to veg out. That's not called numbing. It's called emotional regulation, so that when you get back to a 3, 4, 5, or 6, then you can start to look at things with a clear head. Then you can start to reason with yourself. So distraction is not always a bad thing. It's a self-soothing. One of the greatest things I do, if I'm an 8, 9, or 10, it's like, oh, I'm going to go get myself a latte. Okay, like it doesn't have to be this rocket science. I need to soothe myself. When my brain is like, I need a whole new life and a whole new business and a whole new blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I just need a water, just a water. Okay. So soothing yourselves. Okay. And the last one, before I go on to the last one. So choose discipline over distraction. What I do want to say there is, this is a time where you can, once again, you can practice and grow your muscle of discipline. And discipline is, how I define discipline is doing what you said you were going to do. Because discipline creates a lot of self-confidence and self-trust. And that's a really good feeling. So am I keeping the promises I'm making to myself? That's where I would say, like, still choose discipline over distraction. So really thinking about what's on my to-do list and what's on my not to-do list during quarantine, those lists might look a little different than they used to. And honoring those lists is going to help you feel disciplined, which leads to self-trust. Confidence is the ability to confide in oneself, which ultimately is discipline. It's, do I keep the promises I make to myself? So one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself when you're not in control of anything, like when they let us out of our houses, like talk about being out of control. The greatest thing you can control is your ability to keep the promises you make to yourself. You always have control over that. Isn't that life-changing? I love that definition of confidence and discipline. Okay, and then last, This one stays true. Become addicted to activity over results. Become addicted to activity or the process, right, versus the outcome. So I believe right now, more than anything, if you are all in business, which I think most of you are, I believe right now what's become even more important is doubling down on your goodness, doubling down on connection with people, doubling down on investing in relationship capital. I believe that's never been more important. I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of keeping track of who's checking in on me. I'm remembering the people that are saying, I just thought of you today, Erin. How are you? I mean, how are you really? There was a woman yesterday that just reached out to me and just said, I just want you to know that I've got your AMPED manifesto in front of me and I've been reading it every day and it's really changing me. And I haven't talked to this woman in 2 years. She came to one of my event. Do you know how like loved I felt? I will never forget her during quarantine that Hope reached out to me and she's told me this. I'll never forget it. Be that bright spot for people. People are they're gonna take inventory and do it because you love doing it, but it matters. We need to double down on our goodness and become addicted to that process versus results. So I know that I will be remembered for adding value to people's lives during this time. I opened up this inner circle for 3 months for free for people. I just want to add value to people. Double down on your goodness. Double down on your value add. Okay. So those were the 5 pillars. I'll send you all the recording and the worksheet. It's all there, but I would love to open it up for discussion.